allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please have a roll call.
Councilmember Cooper?
Yes.
Councilmember Shai?
Here.
Councilmember Rowell?
Here.
Mayor Gunderson?
Here.
Councilmember Jones?
Here.
All present. Next, we move into the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion support to bring this to the floor?
So moved. Support.
Is there any discussion or separations?
Yes. Could we move item C down to new business?
We can do that.
Could we also add, I guess it would be item B, appointment of individuals to the zoning board of appeals?
Any other discussion, separation, or addition? Hearing none, I would ask for an approval to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved. Support.
Have a motion and support. Call for the vote, please.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Shai?
Yes.
Mr. Arado?
Yes.
Mr. Henderson?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Agenda is amended, passed 5-0. Next, we'll move into public comment. Anybody wishing to comment on any agenda item, 3 minutes. If you would, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Craig Corbessa, 8079 Story Road. Take a moment to speak on behalf of the resolution. Again, as I've stated in the past by myself and other community members, we would like council or urge council to consider changing the public comments to after the consent agenda items have been discussed, so that there can be a true and open dialogue between council and community members. With this being said, and not knowing the total substance of the resolution that is being proposed, I can only urge council to vote no on the resolution of the mayor and city manager being allowed to request an attorney at any time. There is already a system in place to protect the taxpayers from useless requests of attorneys. You have the ability to call special meetings if there's an emergency that arises. But considering there's already over $80,000 in attorney fees this year alone, the community deserves not only explanations for that, but obviously following the charter as written to protect taxpayers' hard-earned monies. As an example, it's completely inappropriate to waste $675 on a one-page document to a single home-based business owner. To put things in perspective, 15% of that could have been used for downtown landscape cares. 5% of it could have went to Demarest Fields that are in disarray, to give you an idea. Still leaves $64,000 of that $80,000 in attorney fees being used to go through better enhancements. We're always being told there isn't any money. That's because there's poor decisions being made, and there's a constant, unaccountable revolving door of attorney services being used. So again, council members, I'm urging you that you do not vote yes on the resolution, but to pursue the charter that is already in place to prevent waste. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Craig.
Good evening, my name is Ralph Bracken. I live at 11833 Ritchie Avenue in Cedar Springs. I am not a resident of the city, but I am a graduate and I have many family members and friends that reside within the city. I consider this my hometown. And after reading the agenda And seeing this resolution that was just talked about, I'd like to reiterate what was said and remind the council that this document, your city charter, is what you have to follow. Nobody supersedes us. This is a document that these citizens have voted in, and generations before you and generations after you will have to follow. The law states that you have to, if you want to amend this document, that you must go to the vote of the people. It says in section 7.7 that the council may request the city attorney, not individual people. And as was stated earlier, that if there's an emergency, you have all the rights to bring in this attorney, if need be. Even the state of Michigan, under the Open Meetings Act, allows you the privilege to call a special meeting at very short time frame. And then you may call in the assistance of the attorney or feel if you need to. But it would appear as if with everything that's gone on here in the recent past, that a few select individuals would like to bring this attorney in, possibly to stop some other council members or citizens from speaking or voicing their concerns. This is not the basis of our government. And you don't supersede or you circumvent a document because it's not convenient to follow at that particular time. We have laws and we have rules we abide by because that's the government and the society we live in. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mike Henry, 806 Wildlife Trail. I agree with the previous two speakers, that we have, in our charter, there are means for council to get together for special meetings. I feel that this is the mayor and the manager trying to usurp the power from the council for their convenience. The council cannot amend the charter by a resolution, and the Michigan Constitution, section 22, says that the electors of the city have the power and authority to amend its charter, not the council. It's been said that we want to have transparency. I've heard council members say, I've heard the managers say, it's been in the paper, that we want transparency. This just gives the image that something shady is going on. That I don't see any need for this resolution to pass. That's all I have to say.
Anyway.
Good evening, everyone. Catherine Henry, 806 Wildlife Trail, Baldwin, Michigan. I agree with the statements that have been made thus far this evening in public comment. Section 5.5 of our Baldwin City Charter does state that the City Council has the right to tell the city attorney whether to be here or not. When it is talked about that the City Council will or will not do something, that means it has to be done by a majority vote. So no one person is more important than any other in that regard. As I believe Ralph Brecken talked about, the Baldwin City Charter is our constitution. So just like the U.S. has a constitution, Michigan has a constitution, the city charter of any particular city is its constitution. And that is the binding authority above and beyond any local laws or, in this case, resolutions that can be passed. Michigan Codified Law, Section 15.265, specifically allows for not only special meetings, which can be called on an 18-hour notice, to do something just as for the purpose of voting to allow the city attorney to be present at the next regularly scheduled meeting. But if there was truly an emergency, this section also allows for an emergency meeting to happen where no notice is required in order for you to meet, provided certain conditions are met, including that 2/3 of the members would have to agree to have that meeting. So you can have regular meetings, you can have special meetings, and you can also have emergency meetings. The resolution resolution says that it's not always practical to have a regular city council meeting or to call a special city meeting. And what's important is that our Constitution specifically talks about, in section 22, that it is the voters or electors of each city that get to amend the Constitution. It doesn't say that if it's convenient or inconvenient to follow the current city charter, that any particular city council may vote to change it. No matter what anybody feels about the convenience or practicality or whether you like a certain provision or don't like it, the law is what it is. It's the Constitution. The only way you can change, amend, adopt, do anything with a city charter at all is to go through the provisions that Ralph talked about, I believe, section 177. So please keep that in mind, that it would be absolutely illegal to vote to change in any way the charter as it exists right now, which says that the city council has the right as a whole to ask the city attorney to be present. As far as the only other item on the agenda for a closed session, I would again urge you to pay attention to section 15.268, section 8H, which is stated actually in full right there, which is to consider material exempt from discussion or disclosure by state and federal statute. The only thing that the Open Meetings Act and FOIA allow to not be disclosed are certain materials, certain discussions that need to be made, votes, actions, anything else like that, including the topic about which you are meeting, has to be disclosed. Anything that is not particularly excluded by that statute has to be included and given notice to the public. So, in other words, it does not say that you can keep the entire topic secret and only have the council members and city manager know about it. It says that you can have the discussion about that topic and keep that that discussion secret and kept in a closed session. So please keep that in mind when you keep having these closed meetings. And I believe, without having noticed about what they're for, most of them are probably, maybe not all of them are probably appropriate to have a closed session. I would just ask that you follow the law in that regard and tell the people what the topic is about, because there's no way for effective citizen participation to happen if we don't even know what the topic is that you're going to be talking about. We have a right to be able to address you on certain matters and have you take that into account as well when you're having your closed session and in your discussions. So I just ask you to please take a look at that, take a look at whatever relevant case law you think would be appropriate, and also consider, remember that the Valley City Charter is the constitution of our city and has to be followed whether we like it or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Joe Firestein, 901 West State Street, ex-councilman. I'd like to make one point that some people in there should read. That charter has been probably changed 25 times, not by the voters of the city, by the state of Michigan. The state of Michigan is over that charter. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Shelley Gladdy, 1021 Pleasant Street. Being that it's been added to the agenda for the zoning board of appeals, I just want to put this on record that being I was on the zoning board of appeals at the time that it was disbanded, I would like everybody to know that the members that were on at that point were not notified. I read about it in the Daily News, like everyone else, and still to this point, I have no anything from city council as an explanation, or I had to read it in the Daily News like everyone else. And as for Joe's statement, I would like to say that the state the state has made changes 25 times, but last time I realized that city council wasn't the state. So that's just my statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Any other public comment on agenda items? Being none, we will close public comment. We'll move next into the consent agenda. We have 3 items on the consent agenda. I'd ask for motion and support to bring this to the floor.
So moved.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I have a few questions. G&D Electric, we paid almost $2,000 for supplies. What was that for? What? There's no-
Oh, yeah, this to be sorry.
Do we have any idea?
Off the top of my head, no. Typically, when you have questions on this, you call me, and then I can pull the invoice and provide the information.
Okay, well,
And my guess is that, the coding as far as supplies, if that was part of the contract that was in there relative to some of the parts that they purchased for the installation of
For the open debate.
the lighting, yeah. The LED
so that was part of that bid that, with the LED lighting?
Yes.
Okay. What about this refrigeration mechanical? I'm not sure I've heard of that business before in that area. 0118, service for almost $1,400.
Again, I don't know, I don't have the invoices with me. Those are questions that typically, if council members have those, they either come in or they call and go, what is this? And I can pull the invoice to give you the specifics.
Because I don't know that being I mean, that's an industry that, we've been in business for, since 1946 in the community. I haven't ever seen, I'm not saying there's not a business with that title, but I just never saw it before. So, for $1,400, I was interested in what that was.
Any other comments? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote.
Mr. Scheib,
Yes.
Mr. Lallo,
Yes.
Mr. Henderson,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Cooper,
Yes.
Consent agenda passed 5-0. Next, we'll move on to council liaison reports. Mike, start with you.
Housing Commission is Thursday night. I will be out of town. So I talked to Sharon today. It's general business. I have had one.
Tom?
Planning Commission is Thursday night here.
Yes.
If anybody's interested in coming down, the zoning board committee or zoning committee of the Planning Commission, the meeting Monday night in discussion about park properties and whether they need to be rezoned. At this point, they're zoned R2. Anyway, multifamily is the way parks are zoned in Darwin right now.
Some are. One particular one is, most of them all fall under a residential category.
So anyway, the planning commission's, their subcommittee is looking at possibly changing that.
Thanks, Tom.
We haven't had a rec board meeting. I think the next one is January 12th. I guess we haven't, I should say I haven't been fortunate enough. So hopefully after the 12th I'll have something to report back to you.
Thank you. DDA met. Right now, they're in the process of trying to resolve the negative capture for the DDA area itself. Several options were proposed in the past. They went over those again as far as what's the direction I'd like to go. I also know that there's been a possible meeting set up with the land bank in Ionia to try to talk about some properties that are in the DDA. Library board met last night. They're still working on the personnel handbook, and also they're talking about extending hours on Thursday Tuesday or Thursday coming up here. They're still looking into that. So, other than that, I have nothing else. We have nothing under unfinished business, under new business. We have a resolution for the mayor or city manager to request the presence of the city attorney or city council for a city council, at a city council meeting. Crane, could I have you read that resolution?
Resolution number 2014-1257, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Belding, Michigan, authorizing the mayor and/or city manager to request the presence of the city attorney at city council meetings.
Thank you. Ma'am?
At the last council meeting, a motion was made by Councilmember Jones to have a resolution at the meeting to authorize the city manager and the mayor to have the attorney attend a council meeting, and this was supported by Councilmember Lalo, and it passed. At that meeting, Attorney Cracker indicated and specified that the council did have the authority to make a resolution relative to giving the city manager and the mayor those authorities, or that authority in which to make contact when necessary to bring the city attorney into a meeting. The resolution itself, as Councilmember Jones pointed out, the verbiage there is the mayor and or the city manager, and he indicated that he would like to see that changed simply to the mayor and the city manager, so this way that it would be a joint decision between the two of us. Now, that does not preclude any of the council members from contacting either myself or the mayor to request, and then us conferring and determining that. And additionally, Attorney Cracker did provide some of the language relative to this resolution so that it is legit and legal and meets those parameters.
Thank you, ma'am. Get a motion to support to bring item A under new business to the floor.
For the sake of discussion, I'll make a motion with the change of the /or in the actual resolution, and down 2/3 of the way down it says and/or, get rid of the /or. So it does take two people to request the city attorney.
Well, once you get supported, yes, and I can amend it to reflect that.
Is everybody clear on that? We're removing the word or. Both sections. Support.
You need the support.
Yes, support.
For Tom's motions, what we're supporting right now? Or? Is there any more discussion before we go on finally? Okay.
Discussion on this?
Yeah, several people that got up, hit the nail on the head. According to MML, they had a nice little, thing on their website that explains exactly how this is done. We can, and Attorney Cracker's right, we probably can put a resolution, actually, I know we can put a resolution forward, but that doesn't change our charter. There needs to be a committee of 9 form, I believe. That can't be a council member, a board member, a city employee. It's got to be people from our community. They're encouraged to retain legal counsel. They have to rewrite a specific part of the charter. It needs to go to the prosecutor, the attorney general, the governor, and then there needs to be a vote to the public in order for this to happen. When we have the system set up the way we do, we have a special meeting and request attorney, if in the rare case that we do need them in a timely fashion, then we can do that. This is an unnecessary step, unnecessary expense. It's completely ludicrous for us to go forward with this.
Mike?
Well, I'm just thinking, what kind of a notification do we have on this when we need a city attorney? I mean, usually we find out about it when we get a council packet, we don't find out about it beforehand. And, it would be nice to know what's going on, why he's coming in, and when the decision was made and that kind of stuff. I don't know if there needs to be a formal vote with the council or not, or if it just needs to be a phone call so we know and then get the feelings of the other council members to see where they stand on this, whether they think it's correct or not. And if they do, fine. If they don't, well, then we'll have to call a special meeting or something. But, it'd be nice to know rather than just all of a sudden you're in your council packet, and you got a closed session, there's gonna be an attorney here, and, with absolutely no aforementioned, going on here to what is happening. That's all I got to say, I guess.
As far as the charter, and I just didn't see anywhere in that section that showed that we needed a majority vote. Although I saw where it said council has the right to have an attorney present, I don't know whether to stipulate a majority vote was needed. I'm kind of confused by it.
And that's why I believe when Attorney Cracker was here last time, he tried to explain that a lot of times when you're looking at legal, you have to do the interpretation part of it or the intent part of it. And that's why he had that discussion relative to the intent, and therefore you could create a resolution that gives you that authority, so that it isn't necessary to have a special meeting or a meeting relative to authorizing legal counsel to be present. Additionally, there are a lot of or a lot of communities that actually have their city attorney present at every meeting. We don't do that simply because of the cost. So when we do have the city attorney here, it is generally relative to an issue that is something that requires closed session, that is not disclosable relative to what that meeting will be about, and it follows the OMA requirements for closed session relative to the items that are permissible, and then the language that is utilized for that, i.e. to discuss material that is exempt from state or federal statute. That is one of those that is attorney-client privilege, and as Mr. Cracker indicated, sometimes if you elaborate as to what that is, it can be giving away the information that you're trying to maintain that confidentiality about.
Like I said, we can argue back and forth whether council means the entire council, but in several sections of the charter, it does state that in certain sections that we need a majority vote. This one, however, doesn't state we need a majority vote. So, we can argue back and forth with that. That's all we have.
Thank you, Jim.
So you don't think we need the resolution, or?
No, I mean, I'm okay with the resolution, I'm just kind of the wording in the charter. Like I said, we can argue back and forth whether it stipulates a majority vote or all council or what, but I do realize it just says council has that authority to give a city attorney here, but in no word does it state we need a majority vote for that.
I guess I had a question. Well, you'll them to vote. Who would request it? It says request to the council, so I can request the council to the city attorney at my pleasure? If it's requested to the council, it's a 3-2 vote.
Carrie has a bill, so not this.
I don't know, I'm not sure of the resolution.
Let's go.
I spoke my piece. I mean, upon request of the city council, Jerry's not the city council alone. Mike isn't the city council alone. You're not the city council alone. We are the city council. That means 3 of us had to request it to be here. Bottom line, I mean, it's pretty simple, really.
I understand your point.
The wording that this resolution has been put together was by our attorney, and and he feels this does not go against our charter? Next question. Can I take that as a yes?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Anything else?
So we would have to have a special, if we don't have this resolution, we would have to have a special meeting of some kind, or handle it at a regular meeting and wait 2 weeks if we don't have this resolution.
Correct.
So just if the mayor just called the rest of the council and they agreed to it, that wouldn't constitute the request of the council. Because that's not,
It's not being done in an open forum. That would be making a decision outside the parameters of an open meeting, which then would technically be considered a closed meeting, which would then be a violation of OMA.
One thing I'd like to say on this too is the fact is that it's been a past precedent that as a council, and also as the mayor, and also dealing with the city manager, we have been able to just, at that point in time, call up council members and get a consensus, and we would do that. However, it was brought to our attention at the last meeting, and it was asked by Mr. Jones to get a resolution brought together to the city council, and that's what we have done here. Doesn't make it right or wrong. We've done this in the past, it was a precedent, now we're trying to correct that. So that's why this was on the agenda, and it needed to be separated off the consent agenda because of discussion, which it was. The one thing we need to keep in mind too is by calling a special meeting, it could also work for or against the individuals depending on what they wanted to do. So if we had 5 people available, and say somebody decided that they wanted to have a special meeting, but it was convenient, there was a couple people out of town, and they might be opposed to them, at that point in time, there could be a special meeting called within 18 hours after notification, and things could go the other direction too, in their favor. So, with that being said, I guess at this time, I would ask for you to reread the resolution, if you would, please, Grant.
A motion by Councilmember Jones to eliminate the word "or" in both sections, that it would require 2 people to request the city attorney. Supported by Councilmember Scheid.
We need a separate one, as the resolution also has the change.
It would be, because the motion that Councilmember Jones made was relative to removing those words.
Okay.
And that was what Councilmember Scheid approved, so it would be to approve the amended resolution.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to verify.
I've got a quick question. How does this not directly violate that charter?
Well,
This says one thing in the charter and it says one thing in the resolution. They're both different.
oftentimes documents, charters and ordinances allow the opportunity for resolutions to augment them. With Attorney Cracker making that statement, that indicates that this has been done in the past, it has stood up if it's been challenged. Therefore, it is within the legal parameters of the council to go ahead and authorize a resolution.
It is, but then it has to go, there's gotta be a committee form, and it's gotta go to the prosecutor, attorney general, and it
Well,
states it right on the website.
That
There's no
would be,
question.
that would be to
Black and white.
amend the charter, this
It says
resolution.
resolution in it too, right on the website.
Well, to amend it, to,
Resolute, whatever.
well, your charter is your governing document, as Ms. Henry said, it is your constitution. However, additionally, as Mr. Firestein stated, you have situations where the state has enacted legislation. Local cannot supersede state, state cannot supersede federal. Therefore, if a state law is put into place, it trumps whatever is in your charter or your code of ordinances for that matter. So for him to make that recommendation that a resolution be put into place that gives that authority of the mayor and myself conferring to determine whether or not they should be there means that it is legally valid. Otherwise, he would not have made that recommendation. It doesn't mean that the charter has to be amended. The resolution augments the charter.
Mr. Brecken, please.
Would you like to ask me a question?
Yeah,
No.
come forward.
No,
Can,
this is not open dialogue to the public. This is amongst the council.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for improving that. Please call for vote.
Mr. Scheid?
No.
Mr. Lovell?
Yes.
Mr. Gunderson?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
No.
Item A on the new business. Passed 3-2. Next we move into item B, which was the appointment of the zoning board of appeals. We don't have information on this.
I have some for you.
Excuse me, just a second, please, I'm still talking. We do not have information on this as far as a complete list of people. And guess I'll ask for motions for it, bring this to the floor first.
So moved.
Second?
Support.
Okay, we're open for discussion on this. I guess, Meg, if you can enlighten us on any of this,
Well, some of the concerns that have been brought forward relative to this, when the city council went ahead and dissolved the existing zoning board of appeals, and the city council took it over, all of those members were removed, and therefore it's not a reappointment, it would be a reapplication process. We have had 4 applications, but the enabling legislation for the zoning enabling act specifically states that the members of a zoning commission shall be selected upon the basis of the members' qualifications and a fitness to serve as members of the zoning commission. And so one of the concerns is to evaluate what the members' qualifications are. When you're dealing with zoning board of appeals or board of zoning appeals, it is a black and white issue. Zoning is black and white, therefore you can't use common sense. You have to look at what the law is relative to the zoning and with what the individual is asking, does this meet this or does this not? And so the zoning board of appeals is unique in the sense that it is one board outside of the city council that can actually be sued relative to decisions that they make. And so you need to verify that those members that are sitting on that board are qualified in the sense that they understand the ramifications of that. They also understand zoning. There are zoning seminars that are available and zoning training, and as I see that Chairman Knowlton is in the audience from the Plan Commission, And there's been some discussions relative to training, and plan commission members are gonna be offered up the availability to go to some site plan training, some planning and zoning training, and some other training that's out there, so that they are better equipped to make the decisions based upon the zoning ordinances, the regulatory document that they have to utilize in making their decisions. And zoning board of appeal members or board of zoning appeal members should also have the same benefit and should have that training accessible so that they understand it. And frankly, I think it is best if it's done by an objective party that is outside of the city, so that there is no appearance of impropriety or bias. And so when you're evaluating those individuals, part of that would be, are they willing to go to the training? And if not, then are they really a valuable asset if they don't have the skill set initially in which to do this? This is one of those that on-the-job training would not be appropriate due to the potential legal ramifications. So there's been some discussion. As a matter of fact, Chairman Knowlton and I actually had a conversation relative to establishing a manner in which that would occur. Typically, when you have the other boards that we have, for instance, the other appointments that occur, you have the library, the city council makes those appointments, the recreation board, the city council makes those appointments, planning commission, museum board. Traditionally, how that works is that a recommendation comes from one of those boards because they evaluate that individual and their qualifications, and in some instances will interview them relative to why they want to sit on this board and volunteer their time. Since the zoning board of appeals is directly appointed by council without recommendation, with the exception of the member from the planning commission, should be a recommendation from planning commission to city council for that seat on the BZA, because the enabling legislation, our zoning ordinance specifies that one member of the board of zoning appeals shall be a member of the planning commission, therefore they would make that recommendation to city council. But I think it would behoove city council to protect themselves, to establish a process in which those appointments will be made relative to potential interviews, to establish what qualifications they have and the level of commitment that they might have relative to training that the city would go ahead and pay for, so that they can have the appropriate skills in their toolbox, and so that their toolbox is adequate.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's check where we're at here. I think, Jerry, you got any comments on this?
No, I think I agree with the city manager. I look forward to the candidates coming forward, and if they are, qualified candidates and they get the training, I have no problem filling them up.
Thank you.
It's been indicated to me in the past that there are some applications out there for the ZBA. I guess at this point, what is the status of those, or, are we going to, do we have a third party to review them, or are we reviewing them, or?
I think that, frankly, you'll need to establish that protocol and how you want to do that relative to, are there interviews that are done in the public forum relative to this to determine those qualifications? And would this be someone that would be able to look at the regulatory document and understand that it's black and white, that there isn't gray area, and that they need to follow within those parameters, simply because this is one board that, just to give you for instance, when the ZBA makes a decision, if it is unfavorable to the applicant, they have the right to take that board and the city into court to challenge it, and not only to overturn it, but to seek monetary damages as a result of it. So you've got a board who actually has quite a bit of power per se, but with that also comes the responsibility of understanding that the decisions that they make have to be based upon the regulatory document that's in front of them. And so I think really the first step, my recommendation would be, is that city council determine how they want to do this relative to, do you want to interview them? Do you want to have a work session in which you do the interviews in the public, which it would need to be done, and to have a set of questions that you ask them relative to that?
You have the
Oh, I'm sorry. Anything else, Ben?
I guess I still say, what do we need to do to get this process underway? So we can proceed to turn the ZBA back over to the Citizens Committee. And, are we gonna have a third party involved in the interviews, or, the question is, the previous members that were on the ZBA, have we even notified them or talked to them to see if they're interested in reapplying, in effect, for those positions?
The ones that were directly on there, no, we have not. The protocol that has been utilized in the past is when a member's term is getting ready to expire on a board, the city clerk has contacted them, letting them know that the term is going to expire. Are they interested in the reappointment, so that that can be made available to that board who makes that recommendation to council. So my suggestion is that, I know what you're trying to do, but I think you need to establish how we do this, so that it's a precedent that can.
That's my question, is what do we have to do to get it started so we can proceed with?
I think right now you need to determine that process that you'll utilize relative to how you're going to make the determinations that you're putting somebody in there that, has the qualifications necessary. Frankly, I think an interview process is good, so that you can ask those questions relative to, what do you know about the Board of Zoning Appeals? What is your knowledge base on this? What other activities have you done that are similar to this, so that you understand what you're dealing with? So I think that the best way to move forward is to determine what that process is. We have 4 signed applications pursuant to the zoning ordinance. It does stipulate that the Board of Appeals, one member shall be a member of the Planning Commission. Therefore, that individual would be a recommendation from the Planning Commission. And then also, one member of the Board of Appeals may be a member of the City Council, but shall not serve as chairperson of the Board of the Zoning Appeals. And traditionally, there has always been a member from council, so that is a recommendation that council can determine based upon its members as to who sits. But I think that the others, because you'll have a recommendation coming from Planning Commission for which member they want to represent, and then council can make the determination. But the others, there should be some type of a process in which to determine of the applicants who is best suited to sit on this board. So I think tonight really you should determine what that process will be, and then we can do a timeline from there. And I think that Commissioner Knowlton would be more than willing to help to develop a list of questions relative to some of the questions that council could ask. I mean, he's been on the Planning Commission for combined well over a decade, and so he does have that knowledge.
Anyone else?
We've got 1, 2, 3 individuals who were all on the board previously that want to be on the board still. No, they were not contacted. We have 3 business owners that are willing to be on the board. It's really pretty simple. Us as a council tonight can appoint those people, fill those vacancies, and we can be done with this zoning board nonsense. Those people, by the way, Shelley Cooper, she was a ZBA chair. Shelley Gladding, she was on it as a planning commission member. Bob Benson, he indicated his interest in, a retired police officer, I believe, indicated his interest in being an alternate or a board member. Dan Blunt Senior, a business owner, a longtime business owner in town, has submitted his application. Mike Henry has submitted his application. Benita Steele, a business owner in town, has submitted her application. That fulfills the ordinance, so all we need to do is appoint them.
Excuse me, Jen Clear has also.
Okay, that gives us 2 alternates. Thank you. So we can appoint them all right now and be done with it, or we can drag it out.
My concerns are right now at this point in time, we have several projects going on in the community. We have Westco, which is wrapping up to the point to where there are still meetings that have to be met. We have one tonight for them. We also have one coming up Thursday night. We have the bank that is moving forward, and I believe the Commons has their project going. My concern is, as the city council, we're setting up here, and if we follow through with what Mr. Cooper wants to do, then by putting these people in place, how are they going to be educated on the situation at hand? The council is going to be the fall guy here. The new zoning board of appeal members won't be up to speed, which in turn will be holding back business. So, with that being said, I would make a motion that we turn this into a work session, preferably the second meeting of January, so that everybody can take a breather here. And,
I never got a chance to talk to you.
sorry, told you I lost track.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Based on what is said here tonight, how do we qualify?
Yeah, how do I?
How do we qualify? How do we qualify to hold this position? We have people in place that were qualified because they've been doing it. And it was yanked out from underneath them. You know, we're not qualified to do it. Just because we're city council members, that makes us qualified? I don't know. I'm just asking questions because based on what Meg is telling us and stuff, you know, it just doesn't seem like we're qualified for it.
Well, we had a motion that was made, and it was voted on at the last council meeting, or 2 council meetings before, I can't remember now, about qualified candidates. It was voted 5-0 to bring that forward for qualified candidates. That's the direction we are going. The reason before, as I spoke, that the zoning board of appeals was absorbed amongst us was because of the fact is we did have projects going on. Wesco was coming towards us. The independent bank was coming towards us. We were down to 4 members, and as I said, if one of them was sick, one was on vacation, we again would be the fall guys as far as not being able to keep business moving forward.
Okay, so,
And so the handbook was handed out in advance for us to read.
right,
And then with us being council members, that was the reason why we had, can you fill me in again, Meg, on that? The state, the way that's stated.
The enabling legislation allows the governing body to also act as the Board of Zoning Appeals. And we did have issues relative to scheduling meetings and meeting people's, getting everybody together on a certain date. So some things were being pushed out because we weren't getting the quorum that we needed.
okay, so we could hybrid this thing, have us finish out what's here, have the people that are going to be appointed or are appointed to come in and sit in on it and get their feedback by listening to what we're doing and stuff, and then eventually turn it over, right?
we have, there are, is it MML or planning is doing the
Michigan Planning
Michigan
Association.
Planning Association, there's one in March. And that's merely why I'd forgotten, that, like I told you, I lost track here. But that's why I made a motion to move this into January so we can have a work session and move this and work through this as a work session. Because it's going to take time to finish up with Wesco and get these projects to that point to where we're not holding them up. So,
Mr. Mayor, would it make sense to contact the 3 previous ZBA members, and if they are willing to fill out an application, do that. And then, the first meeting in January, is that New Year's? I forgot my calendar.
No, New Year's is on the Thursday, so it'd be the
It's the 6th.
6th.
Okay. At the first meeting in January, plan on reviewing those applications, and if we're gonna have somebody, third party involved in it, pick them out, and once we have reviewed the applications, I guess we could look at them at that point, and then make a determination, find out when the next classes are, and work with both those schedules. And that way we're in the process of reforming the ZBA, and we'll know first meeting in January what the status is, or I shouldn't say what the status is, but who the council feels are qualified. Would that time frame make sense? And we may not appoint them on that meeting, but at least we're, looking at who we have, and we need other candidates.
okay, then, so what you're saying is the next council meeting would be on the 6th. So
I'm
you
just throwing ideas out,
Right,
I'm not making
okay.
a motion or anything like that.
No, I
I'm
understand
just-
that. But if, as we said, as I started to make a motion for a work session on the 20th, you would like to review these on the 6th, then is what you're saying.
I'll have a work session on the 6th,
Okay,
rather than
that's-
on the 20th.
That's what I'm saying. I was just trying to give everybody a breather here, so trying to get things wrapped up as far as the city and as far as jobs, that are going on within the city, so.
I realize that, that's the reason I'm saying we may not appoint them at that night. But by then, we'll be another month into the building process.
Okay, we'll schedule a work session for the 6th.
What would you like me to prepare? Would you like me to work with Chairman?
Don't look at me, I'm just throwing ideas out.
Yeah, I think.
Because the 4 of them sit over there, and so I tend to ignore you, so.
I think we need questions.
Make me feel
We need questions. We need to review those questions that you and maybe Gary puts together.
That's-
And I think before that, and maybe add any other questions that we might have. I'd also like to review those before we come into that meeting too, before we come into the applications, and review these questions too prior to that.
The planning commission meets Thursday night, so Gary could put consideration of reappointing or asking somebody from the planning commission to, whether Shelley would want to continue to do it, or somebody else would want to do it as a ZBA. And ask that group that if they know somebody that's not on the planning commission that might be interested in putting an application in. I don't know, there was discussion about a third party to review it, and whether we need to go to that step or not. I don't know.
I think we go into the work session, kind of figure out the direction then to.
I think we need as many applications as possible to review at that meeting. All the ones that Dennis had brought up, and the 3 previous members, and if anybody else in the community wants to apply, I'd be more than happy to, get as many people involved in this as possible. So we have a pool of applicants.
Motion on that.
So rescind your motion.
I'll rescind my motion for the 20th of January as a work session. Tom, would you like to?
You have a current motion out for Mike, made by Mike and supported by Dennis. I don't remember exactly what their motion was.
I think it was something to bring.
To bring it to
For
the
this
floor.
to the floor.
Yeah,